Alright, masinamkele babukeli be-Informa Digital TV. Namhlanje sithe masibe khona apha sikwazi into kokubana silonje into yethu entsha ibona fela podcast. Niyiphathelwa ke i-Informa Digital TV. Siyanamkela nani as a guest zethu. Welcome. We welcome each and everybody here, and we hope that we are going to enjoy what we are going to do today. Silontsha le podcast ke emveni kwexesha elide sisenza i-episodes zethu, but this is the first launch episode esinayo for this new podcast, which we call Bona Fela podcast. Bona Fela kabanye abantu bazibuza noba ithetha ukuthini le nto. It's a pseudo phrase ethetha the real thing, which therefore means we are bringing you real stories and real people. We are sharing stories that go to the heart of our community. So silapho ke namhlanje, the only thing esicelayo kuni is to support this podcast and ngento kokubana nisherishe, spread the word about the podcast, and nithethe ngayo ebantwini, nani ezifonini zenu niyisherishe ko Facebook page benu, nisherishe yonke le nto esizawuthi sikwazi ukuyithetha apha namhlanje. This podcast is focusing ebantwini abaza nezitori ezreal, like your business people. We are going to talk about politics, we are going to talk about business, we are going to talk different issues ezenza thina sibe ngabantu, but eyona nto ibaluleke nangaphezulu is to put abantu baseMatatiele together, babe ne place okanye platform of conversation talking about their issues eMatatiele. There's a lot that has happened, and eyabonisa i-divisions phakathi kwe-communities zalapha. So we're going to use this platform to unite the people of Matatiele, the people of this region, Alfrenzo, and the province of the Eastern Cape. But it's not for us. We are not going to succeed if nina niyekela kuthi. It's also for you to make sure that iyaphumelela yonke lento. But today we are kicking off ke episode yethu nge-guest yethu elapha ecaleni kwami. Guest yethu is a businesswoman, ngumuntu who is passionate about empowering other people, other business people. Ngumuntu obathandayo abantu. He's a coach, a business coach and a mentor. Nguye ke esinaye namhlanje lo ke nguMrs Qaqamba Nodada. Ngicela nimbethele izandla. All right, nguye ke esinaye uQaqamba. Sisiqaqamba, masikwamkele futhi.
Hi, Puti.
Unjani namhlanje?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Yes.
I'm happy because siyenza this thing in a different way, you know. Umbuzo wami wokuqala.
Okay.
Umbuzo wami wokuqala, there's something ebalulekileyo emntwini xa ezalwayo. It's the name. Abazali badibane and then bakunike igama. Your name is Qaqamba. What does that mean?
Do you know, it's a funny story. I interact with a lot of people across the country, people from the Western Cape, people from the Eastern Cape, and it seems like my name has different meanings in different cultures.
Okay.
But people have often associated my name with pain because they know Qaqamba to mean like it's painful.
Yes.
When actually Qaqamba means to be bright, you know, uqhakaza, something that blossoms.
Okay.
So that is what my name means.
Yes, because nambe ngisoloko ngithi ngaba mhlawumbi uthetha inhlungu okanye mhlawumbi uyayibona.
No. You know, I think when my father named me, because it was my father who named me, he gave me two names.
Okay.
The second is actually Qaqamba. The first is Nositsaba, meaning a crown, something that shows royalty, nobility, you know, power, strength. leadership.
Okay.
And therefore, in order to be all those things, I'm definitely going to Qaqamba. I'm going to blossom. I'm going to be a shining light, you know, for people. And that was his prophecy on my life, you know. And yeah, I think that's...
The other thing, I understand that you've got 19 siblings, if I'm not mistaken. Is that true?
That's true.
Wow. That's from the same father?
Same father, different mothers. So I was raised with my siblings.
Yes.
You know, it's so different for me. You know, in many households you get sort of the same formula where you have, you know, children who are outside or extramarital. But with my father, he had started having children. I think my oldest sibling is 1974.
Okay.
That's my oldest sister. She's 1974. And my youngest sister is, I think she's 2000.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Yeah, but she's the youngest.
Okay.
And with all my father's, you know, relationships, marriages, non-marriages, you know, what he always insisted upon is that we knew each other.
Okay.
So should there be a sibling that comes up anyway, we were never allowed to take part in the politics of the relationship or how the children come into the picture. It was always about, you've just got a new sibling, have fun. And that's exactly what we did. And to this day, it is those 19 siblings that hold me up. It's those 19 siblings that absolutely support me. They, you know, they speak pridefully of me and I of them, because that is the relationship that my father insisted upon. He was not going to have the picture where each child is fighting for their parent, you know, because that was never our place. Our place was to be children, to have fun, and to enjoy the fact that there was so many of us.
You seem to be a person who loved her father.
Oh, definitely.
More than the mother.
Oh, definitely. You know,
why?
It's because my mother passed away when I was a young girl, young baby. I was only 4 years old when my mother passed in 1992. Unfortunately, very unfortunate incident. So I was only 4 years old, and I had to be raised by both my grandmother and my mother. And because at the time my father had come across a sale of a farm, and he decided to take it on. I think this was around 95. He decides to take on this farm and he buys it. And so now we have to be raised in two different households because of proximity and location and geography. So we were raised in a location in Akasi where my grandmother stayed by my grandmother, my mother's mom. And in the weekend, we would go to my dad, right? So my dad was as present as any father post-apartheid could be. He was strict, he was, you know, he was everything that a father could be, but in a positive way for me, right? And I loved him because he didn't treat me, he didn't discard me. He treated me like a person, you know. In those days, you find that sometimes a child is just a child. You're just an extra person that's there for us to raise, you know. You're not necessarily a person. But I think my father saw something in me because I challenged him.
Oh, I see.
We had a great relationship because he was strict and he was staunch, but I was the only one who could challenge him. I was the only one who could face him and tell him, no, you are wrong. No, I think that it should actually work like this. And one of our many disagreements, my father and I, we agreed on many things, but one of our many disagreements was my stance on Christianity and salvation. And he obviously comes from, you know, a very traditional background. And he was so much more of a traditionalist. even though he had been converted into the church and participated in the church as one of the deacons, but he was still very much a traditionalist, and that was our tussle, him and I. You know, it was always interesting. It was always heated, but we sort of found a middle ground of respect where that was concerned, because I was very much enlightened. I was very I'm someone who's very much open-minded.
Okay.
So he didn't understand that, but we found this invisible layer of respect where our love for each other transcended what we believed.
He could not say, "Hey, wena musuthetha kanje kum."
No, he could.
Okay.
But I had a rebuttal.
Okay.
It's fine, I won't.
Okay.
But you need to understand what I'm telling you. You know. So what I loved about those exchanges is that he went back and reflected.
Okay.
And you would see in his actions that there was an effect in our conversation. Something happened. So that was my relationship with my dad. You know, I loved him so much because he instilled incredible principles of survival for me. You know, he raised me like a boy, because out of the 19 siblings, about 11 or 12 are guys.
Okay.
And so I didn't get the chance to be a girl, you know, because with those different households, you find that some of the children will stay with the dad, and some of them will stay with their mums. So that's why there was a lower level of girls than there was of boys, because some of the girls were with their mums. And I was the one who had a mom who'd passed away. So I stayed with my dad. He treated me like a boy, and that's just how I was raised. He instilled principles of survival, principles of business, principles of success, principles of leadership. All of the things that I could say, most of the things that I could say I've learned out of those things were definitely from him.
Now, you said to me, you were trained not to enter the politics of your parents' relationship, but nonetheless, I would want to know reaction kamama yayibanjani. Was there a time apho mama ezowulwa ngalento yababantwana okanye mhlawumbi?
No, definitely. Look, I think for any woman, really, you know, when you're a woman and you're in a marriage, we sort of romanticize even the idea of marriage, right? Yes. Primarily before seeing it as something that you are there to build, right? And rightfully so, from your partner, you want commitment, because that is what we've promised each other, you know? So only through stories do I know that, my mother contested the relationships, but not necessarily the children, right? The children that came before her actually were my sisters and my older brothers who stayed with us while she was still alive, you know? But yeah, she definitely had some contestations.
Okay. All right, mbukeli we-Informa Digital TV sihleli naye ke usisi usisi umama uNodada sikwi-podcast ke ithi Bona Fela podcast emadatiela live ku Facebook nakuye uYouTube njengangoku esithethayo. Siyaqhubha ke nencoko yethu apha ekukhuleni kwakho ukhona umuntu ke ngoku na ongumama oke wabukela kuye beside utata ibusiness into kokubana ibusiness yenziwa kanjani other than utata?
Other than my father, I have to tell you that, we weren't really well represented back then as women.
Okay.
But I was raised by my grandmother.
Okay.
And at the time when she took us on, she was just about to retire. I think she retired about a couple of years, after my mother passed away. And that's when you started to see that a woman could be a businesswoman from my grandmother. She had strong principles on making money. She had already had a property in Mount Elif that she was renting out,
Okay.
right, for extra income. She was doing things on the side, selling clothes, getting, secondhand clothes, selling them, etc. So my only model of a woman in business at that time was my grandmother.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Now, wakhula ke uyilo ntombi ifundayo idlala isenza zonke ezo zinto ezo ufundephi?
So at Coxstead,
Yes.
that's where I was born and bred, in Coxstead. Primary school I was in Coxstead Junior.
Okay.
High school I was in Coxstead College, and yeah, that's where I grew up. That's where I fortified my foundations in my basic knowledge of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Waphuma ke ngokwapha waya e-university. Yeyiphi university oye kuyo?
I was obsessed with Rhodes University.
Okay.
I remember applying, and I remember I did apply to multiple. I only applied to Rhodes University, Wits University, and I applied through the is it COA or CAO program in KZN, where you do one application and it goes to all the institutions. So those are the only 3 applications that I did.
Okay.
And the first one that came back was Rhodes University, and they were like, "Girl, you're good. We would like you in our institute." And I was set. I was like, "That's it. Anyone else doesn't need to answer me. I'm fine. I'm going to Rhodes."
All right.
Yeah.
All right. No tata wabeqhubha besithamba.
Definitely, but the thing is, there was no funding for me to actually go to university, and it was such a weird dynamic because you are a child who is growing up on a farm. Now, when a parent has a farm, you believe or you make a judgment that, hey, those people have money, right? But the thing is, we had enough money to sustain the farm, right? But we didn't have enough money to send me to school.
Okay.
So what I had to do, I had to apply for a bursary through the Eastern Cape Health Department, which I did, and I applied through NAFSAS, which I did, and both applications took their time. They literally took their time. It was an on and off thing. NAFSAS wanted this document, they wanted that document, they wanted to know how do you have a farm, but you've got, do you get what I'm saying? You want money, but your father has a farm. So it was that weird dynamic of being in the missing middle. And Wits at the time was saying, look, you can come up. So the week before, I hadn't gotten any responses in terms of Department of Health. Are they giving me the money to go to school or not? Or Wits. And Wits was saying, we'll take you on a partial, I think it was a partial scholarship through NFSS. So that week, I was supposed to go to Joburg, to Wits, and I didn't want to go to Wits. And the Eastern Cape department was just not coming to the party. The day before I'm supposed to leave, literally my bags were packed for Johannesburg. Eastern Cape calls, and they're like, no, your application is successful. You can continue to Rhodes. And I was like, let's change the bus ticket. We're going to Grahamstown.
Then, did you know into oyifunda phaya ngelo xesha phaya esikolweni uba ndiyofunda ntoni phaya?
Yes, I did. I had done I've always been curious, right? So I had done intensive research on what it is that I want to do. I was deciding, obviously, when you're a child, your parent is going to tell you, you must go and do medicine, or you must be a lawyer. You know, the normal thing that parents will tell you. So when I decided that, okay, it's either I'm going to go into medicine or I'm going to go into pharmacy. And when I saw my marks, I remember in grade 11, and I dropped from higher grade to standard grade maths. I was like, this is not going to work. I need to drop down. So I dropped down to standard grade, and I was like, my chances of becoming a doctor just, went down by like 20%. And I thought to myself, okay, let me think about really doing pharmacy, pursuing pharmacy. And at the time, we were thinking about, okay, you could open a pharmacy. I'm doing all of this research as to, at the end of the day, where do I end up? Do I have a job? And everything. And the advertisements were out, we knew which professions would be funded by the department if you ever wanted to do. So in grade 11, I would go down to the Usher Memorial Hospital, and I asked Mr. Bull, and I was like, Mr. Bull, I just want to, roam around the pharmacy. And kind enough, Mr. Bull was like, yeah, sure, come in.
Okay.
So every day after school, I would go there and I would work in the pharmacy, see what they do, and explore. And when I got to school, I got to learn the content of what pharmacy was about. So I was very much sure of what it is I was going to learn. I didn't understand how hard it was going to be, right? But I was sure.
Okay. You are at the university now.
Yeah.
Yay, ubombasa university.
Oh,
uke wageza pha wasa.
Hey, I did everything. I did everything. Listen, when you have children in university, they must go through all the stages.
Okay.
That's where you must go through let them do everything so that they can come out sane human beings and adults at the end of. I did all the things that children.
Even umjolo wenza.
Yonke, all of it, because your parents aren't there.
Yes.
Right? You're all alone. No one is telling you to come home at 5. No one is telling you that when the street lights come off, the curtains must be closed. No one is telling you to make your bed. Nothing. It's pure freedom. But with freedom comes absolute responsibility.
And then that's where I was going to in this year konto kokubana kuyo yonke lonto wadropha ntwana.
Yeah. Second year, I remember first year I was a okay girl, I was, because you're still like, I've come to do something serious here.
Yes.
Second year, you get into second year.
Okay.
You're like, okay, yeah, I know it's chilled. I know the places, I know the people,
okay.
I know the environment. And I remember Rhodes University at the time was still deemed probably the drinking capital of all universities.
Yes, okay.
And third term, we had something called O term. Now, there's something called O week.
Yes.
O week is orientation week, right? Where they welcome you, they show you the sites, they show you the library, everything. Now, the students came up with O term.
Okay.
O term is when the weekend starts on a Wednesday. The weekend starts on a Wednesday. On Wednesday, it's I don't know, they call it after lectures, drinks or what.
Okay.
On Thursday, it's ladies' night chillers. On Friday, we're getting ready for the weekend.
Okay.
On Saturday, it's the week. On Sunday, it's it's something else. On Monday, you're just recovering. On Tuesday, you're trying to look at your books. On Wednesday, we start again. So that was the whole term, right? And my goodness, did it show? Did it show in the marks?
In the marks.
And when you go to your parent, I don't know what happened, My father was like, you know exactly what happened.
Sure.
He was not impressed at all.
Sure.
Such that I lost my Eastern Cape scholarship, my bursary, I lose it.
Yeah.
And the contract was for 4 years.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, now I'm negotiating with this guy, very strict. I'm like, okay, listen, now we have to go to Bisho. I hear,
Okay.
We have to go to Bisho. I hear they might, and he's like, I'm not doing no such thing.
Sure.
If there's something that needs to be fixed and someone ruined it, you are going to fix it.
On your own.
On my own. And he was like, the best I can do for you is to book you a ticket.
Yes.
You see your way to where Bisho is. You talk to the people you need to talk to, and you give me a report afterwards.
Sure.
I have no idea where Bisho is. I know it's in the Eastern Cape. I have no idea which corner of the Eastern Cape it is. I'm just a young child, and I get on the bus and I go to King Williamstown, I believe.
Yes.
I had no idea. I thought the bus is going to take me straight to Bisho.
Okay.
And the people on the bus are like, no, Bisho is close, but you're going to have to get dropped off at the station. Then you're going to have to find your way to Bisho. I'm like, okay, I'm all alone. My father's not there, and he's like, I'm not coming. He didn't call me. He didn't do anything. I by luck, one of my friends in varsity, her sister, worked at Bishop.
Okay.
So I call her up. I'm like, listen, this is the situation. Oh, she's like, no, don't worry. We'll come and fetch you. We stay just around the corner. So they come and fetch me.
Okay.
And in the morning, I go to Bishop.
Yes.
I go to the
As
offices. And you go there and you negotiate with the people.
Okay.
You know? And I was like, I asked, I can't remember who the gentleman's name is. And he's asking me to see what happened. You know, now he's the one shouting at me, you know. He's like, what happened? You know, you're not supposed to do this. So I'm like negotiating, and he's like, okay, we'll cut you a deal. The contract is still for 4 years.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
We'll continue paying. Okay? And on the 5th year, we can't take it on. You are going to have to find a plan. Right? And I was like, okay, I'll take it. Because at this point, like my father told me that he doesn't have money to send me to school. So it's either I go home and stay home, or I find a way. And this was the only way.
Okay.
And we agreed, and that was set. And I look back on that particular situation and being put in the deep end like that by my father as one of the most pivotal, you know, times of my life, and something that taught me a principle that I will never forget.
I was going to ask the question, is there anything oyifundileyo kulondo?
Definitely. Definitely. I think that was the first time I learned responsibility.
Okay.
You know, I learned responsibility, and I learned that I had charisma that could carry me.
Okay.
I learned how to speak with people. I learned how to negotiate. I learned how to problem solve, right? And, you know, psychologists will tell you now that you can't do everything for your child. You have to sometimes let them. And, you know, at the time, I sat in my corner and I was like, I can't believe I didn't speak highly of my dad about that situation back then. Back then, I was the victim and he was a bad father, you know?
Yeah.
But now, in retrospect, as a parent, you know, that's the exact question that I ask myself. Can you build character in your child without putting them in difficult situations, right? And I look back to that situation and I'm like, probably not.
Okay.
Probably we're going to need to let them figure some things out for themselves. And that's the situation that I look back to. Anytime that I fear or am fearful of solving a problem or meeting with someone I deem higher than myself, right, to sort of negotiate my way around something, I think about that situation, and it gives me the strength to know that you can actually do this.
Well, wabuya wayifumana futhi ibasari yakho, you went back to school, wafunda, wapasa, wagrade, and wafumana umsebenzi as a pharmacist.
Yeah.
Uqale phi ke ngoku umsebenzi wakho?
You know, the town I fell in love with is the town I first worked in, and that's East London. So we got internships.
Yes.
At Frere Hospital. That was the first place where I truly started my working journey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then wasuke East London, where's the Matatiele?
Yeah, because how they structure it is that you have to do your internship and then you have to do your community service, which is a year of community service. And then because you're on a bursary, you sort of have to pay back the department by working for them, sort of like a trade exchange. So you work for them to pay off your debt to the department. And with ComServe, they took me, and I wasn't planning on coming back to this side of the world. You know? They took me and threw me very far in a place called Matatiele, and I was like, oh, my word. Oh, you know what? Matatiele has been on the news.
Yes.
I can remember there was some scandal. Excuse me, I can't even remember. But Matatiele had been on there. I'm like, you know, I lived next to Matatiele. I didn't necessarily want to come to live here, right?
Yeah.
And I tried to negotiate my way around it, but no, I didn't win that one. They were dead set. They were like, your community service will be a tailored request. I'm like, great, no problem. And what was nice is that in East London, we had accommodation, very nice accommodation.
Yes.
Then I came to Matatiele, and it was a different story.
That's okay.
It was a different story.
But wayenza ke ilanto ka i-pharmacy yakho for some years, but ungaphumulanga kuyo, ikhona lento ikuphushayo apha ngasemva kuba wena akuyondawo yakho le i-business. Uthatha ixesha elingakanani ukurealize ba man akufanelekanga ndibe lapha?
You know, it took a while because there was sort of, you know, sometimes we operate from our natural states,
Yes.
and other times we operate through our higher selves, I guess. And I had always been operating in a physical, you know, you get a degree, you go to work, that's it. But there was always something underlying,
Yes.
right? There was always an entrepreneurial spirit that was underlying in me. And I know this because when I got to hospital, I was like, what if I started baking cookies and selling it to the people in the hospital?
Yes.
You know, what if, you know, they started buying? So I do this little experiment, and people buy my biscuits.
Yes.
And I just keep baking and baking and baking, and people are buying. And suddenly another lady is like, do you think you can bake me a birthday cake? I'm like, yeah, of course. I didn't know how to bake birthday cakes. All I knew is that I could bake, right?
Yeah.
So I start baking these lopsided birthday cakes. And, you know, because I'm impressionable, or not impressionable, but rather kind and always nice and always smiling and always accommodating.
Yes.
People are not going to tell me about my lopsided cake, but they like the fact that I've got the spirit and I'm nice, so they'll support,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So they kept supporting until I worked at the skill so much that I got good at it. I got really good at it. Next thing I know, I'm doing wedding cakes. And I'm doing these wedding cakes, baby showers, and I learn about myself that actually I'm a creative, because the intricacy of the designs that I was doing weren't normal, like for other people. In my head, I'm like, why can't people do this? You know, this thing is easy. Like, why can't? But it's not a skill that everyone can do. So I learned so much about myself in this journey, and there's something that's just continuously pushing me to, you know, continue and be an entrepreneur. And I think once you start to, because the pharmacy money was nice, you get paid nice money, but once you start to get extra money when you can do the things that you want in life, that's when you get a driving force about, okay, I think I need to make more of this so I can do more of the things that make me happy, right? It's a little financial freedom. And what I learn about money and business is that once you start something small and it gives you a certain level of finance, right? You go into a certain level of a financial bracket. Then your mind starts to open up into other possibilities that can be financed by this money that you have. I think that's what was happening with me, because I kept on elevating and elevating and elevating. Next thing I know, I'm doing baby showers, and I'm like, I wonder if I can do a wedding. Next thing I know, I'm doing a 400-seater wedding while I'm working in Umtata, right? Because people love to see someone who works and someone who puts in the effort, right?
And bring up a quality.
Precisely. So that's how then I get into events management and deco and all of that, you know. That's how I did it.
Then waphuma emsebenzini wathayima ngiyeke lento umsebenzi ngo.
Yes, so I built up Nolelani Occasions at the time. That was what it was called, right? Because I had been married. Me and my husband decided to put together our names and come up with Nolel. It was all me. I'm the creative. So I was like, what if I put my name and your name together? Let's see what comes out. And Nolelani Occasions comes out. And that's the business that I started, you know, and it was gaining traction. doing beautiful work.
Okay.
I was competing very well with the current very big player, which was Bells Deco and
Bells Deco,
Hire.
yes.
I was competing, right? And 2020 is the year that I lose my dad. 2020 is the year that, unfortunately, my father passes away.
Yeah.
And I think a combination of loss and grief and being unhappy at work.
Okay.
And the only thing that made me feel better was the possibility of growing my companies.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So I latched onto that. I was like, I don't want to be in an environment where I'm not happy. Right? Everyone in a job is somewhat unhappy. But I was like, if I latch onto, Nolelani and grow it, and that seemed more peaceful. It was nicer. It was comforting in the state that I was in, right? And then that's how I
yaqhubeleka ke ngoku.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Then wabona opportunity ke ngoku to into yokubana mayikhule nangaphezulu inolelano yokuba uBells athi ndiyayithengisa ngole business ngubani ozothenga kuqala.
Yeah.
What's it?
It was a nice play by Suspect. It was such a nice play because she was tired at the time.
Yes.
Ukhathele, she's like, look, I've been doing this for years. And I can see that, okay, this girl is coming and she's coming in strong, Let me just negotiate and see how I can, sell the business to her. And sure enough, I was interested, I had my reservations, I had my questions. I take a while to make decisions because I process and I pick apart and I put together. My husband is very different. He makes a decision right now. And he was like, we're buying, we make a decision. I'm like, no. So it took a while because I'm like taking my time. He's fast. We're taking my time. He's fast. But essentially, we take over Bells Deco and High during COVID. I used all of my money. All the money that I had, I put into that business. And that's how the business of Bells Deco and Hire started, or rather evolved.
Yes. All right. Waqhubeka nayo ke ngoku. I-challenges in business. Njengosenza business, what were the challenges?
Sure. I think with Bells Deco in particular, right? Because they are multi-businesses. One of the challenges you find is you are the brand of the company. You are the company. So a lot of people have been used to Usis Bella and her being the face of Bells, right? And when things start to shift and you get new management, new ownership, some clients pull away. Some clients are apprehensive. They are there, but they're apprehensive. And some clients are just, not having it at all. I think that was one of the biggest challenges, was trying to convince people that, look, the quality that you got, you still will get, and probably better quality. Because remember, Usus Bella was coming from an old school of deco, and now you have a new school of deco coming in and joining powers and sort of making this thing into even bigger.
So you needed a lot of effort to convince those customers to say, I'm here, I'm going to do it.
What I didn't understand is that I needed time, not even effort, because people are convinced through time, right? So the actions and your consistency and how you show up and the product that you give is proven over time.
Wow. But iyakhula ke ngoku na ke i-business yakho ye-deco sikujongile iyakhula i-business. What are the new things now that you established up a business to ukuyikhulisa nangaphezulu? Because I also understand that one of the things that you guys have done is to into kokubana image i-business ka Nodada Funeral Classic ne-deco.
Yes. So what was nice is understanding value chain. And that Bells Deco and Hire was not by mistake. Okay. So before or just after Ubels, just after Unolelani, in fact, before Ubels, we had established NB Tombstones.
Okay.
Right, which is also, I was like, what if it's my name, Nosichaba,
Okay.
and your name, Mulelani, and then you get NB Tombstones, you know? So we had established NB Tombstones, and we understood that the funeral industry has a value chain, right? You have people who are experiencing something that they haven't experienced before, or they have experienced before, but the thing about death is that you can't get used to it, right?
Okay.
And what people need in those times is someone who's going to help them through and through. Our experience teaches us in the business that families are more comfortable if they can just get everything done in the same place, right? So they don't have to go here and there because they're dealing with a lot. It's a lot of grief. And when you have a lot more on the plate, it becomes very difficult. So we decided what we want to be for people was a one-stop shop for the time in your life where you want to preserve all the energy that you have to go through the grief, right, that you need to go through. So Nodada Funerals, which was my husband's baby, then fed NB Tombstones, right, which then fed Nolelani or Bells Deco and Hire. So all those companies work in a line to provide a service from start to finish for the client, so that they don't have to go around looking and
whatever I want ngifumana apha.
Definitely. And remember, reputation is incredibly important in business. So to preserve the reputation of KNF as well, and to just grow the quality that it gives, we had to work on that value chain. Because when you have third parties who are supposed to play their parts in different areas, they sort of affect the overall product of what you give to the client, right? For instance, if you are a family and you are going through a bereavement, excuse me, you're going through a bereavement and you're planning the funeral, and I'm the funeral director, Nodada, and I'm saying this is what you can get, this is how we're going to do the funeral service, and you say to me, I have someone different for the tent, I have someone different for who's going to, do the tombstone for me, everything like that, right? And those people do not show up or do not show up on time, it affects the service, right? And we get the backlash. So we decided, no, let us try and streamline this thing so that the nitty-gritties and the knickknacks and the logistics of working with third parties is minimized.
All right. You always talk about Bulelan. Is your husband?
He is.
I mean, how did you meet that guy? How did you meet that guy?
I wasn't planning on meeting anyone. I was just here for my community service, and I was going back to East London, and I was just coming back from the gym, and I meet my cousin at Pick n Pay, right? I'd been obviously away for 5 years in the Eastern Cape, in Grahamstown. So I'm coming back to this place and I haven't seen people, and I see my cousin who just happened to work for him as a driver at the time. And he sees me at Pick n Pay, he doesn't say anything. And I'm greeting my cousin, oh, hi, how are you? I haven't seen you in a long time. And, he then asks for my number from him, and he calls me. And he comes to the hospital to just introduce himself. This is who I am. Gentleman, man of a few words, but we got on a phone call and we spoke for like 2 hours the first time we spoke, and the rest is history, really.
So this guy melts your heart.
Yeah.
All right. Yazi xa nihamba phana wabini awubadibanisa abantu une-character yakho Bulelani yedwa nawe une-character yakho. But how do you balance ilantuka ke ngoku i-family life ne-business?
Do you know what? There is no balance.
Yeah.
There is no balance. I know we talk a lot about it being balanced, but to be the people that we are and to grow the business that we've grown and to have what we have, it's taken a lot of community. It's taken a lot of teachers understanding us. It's taken a lot of people holding us. There are people in our circle who understand our dynamic. They understand that Q is probably in Johannesburg somewhere for the day or for 2 days.
Yes.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
So they are our parents, they are our children's teachers, they are our workers that have sort of bounded together to make sure that they catch us when we are not where we need to be, right? Or auntie plays a pivotal role where my kids are concerned, because at any point I could probably get up and say, hey, I have a thing to do in Joburg, right? And auntie is there to say, look, it's fine, I'll take care of the kids. My mother-in-law has been incredibly important in my life. She's always ready, because she understands the dynamic. So with us, we've really needed to be intentional. Where our marriage is concerned, we've had to be intentional. With our parenting, we've had to be intentional. So anything we do as a family, it's intention rather than it being a default because of all these things that we've built.
Now, business uyiqalile wahamba nayo, but there's something ngokuentsha esibona uyenza. Talking to business or aspirant business people, encouraging them. Yenzeke njani loo nto intoba mawubone uba ungakwazi ukuncedisana nabantu ngolo hlobo?
It started when I started being unfulfilled in the business that I was doing. And the business started failing because of how I was feeling and what I was going through, And because of not being fulfilled, I had to ask myself, what is it that you are looking for, right? What is it that is going to make you happy and make sense for the rest of your years to come? And not being scared to be in front of people, not being scared to, teach people. I absolutely love to teach people. I love to impart knowledge in people. I love to guide people, I think about things in a different way. So whenever I've met someone, and they feel discouraged, they will leave me, right? If we've been together and you feel discouraged, you will leave feeling very encouraged, right? Because I've just always been everyone's cheerleader. It just comes naturally to me. It's a gift of mine. And when I thought to myself, I prayed about it and I was like, Lord, I want to do something that is meaningful. Businesses are meaningful, yes, but I want to do something that fulfills me, that is meaningful. And that was when Better in Business was born, because the business was failing. And I was like, I'm probably not the only person who's going through this, right? I'm probably not the only person who's asked themselves, how do I sustain a business? How do I start a business? What do I do? How do I grow a business? Where do I get a funding for a business? When I'm going through difficult times, we tend to think that there aren't people on the other end of a business, right? There are people on the other end of every business that you see. And those people are going through difficult times. Others are going through divorces. Others are going through the kids being sick. Others are going through deaths, And I thought to myself, how we are and who we are on the other end of that business is affecting how we do business, right? No one goes to, not a lot of people go to school for business. We get a general understanding in our high school. They give us a general understanding. But really, 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 the crux of business and how to do it and everything you learn on the streets of business, no one goes to school for that, right? And I had learned things, I had made mistakes, I had failed, I had done everything. And I was like, I can teach people to be better in business. Right? Because I read a lot. I am a business owner. I am confident. I am motivational. It only makes sense. Like if you would tell me that I'll be a teacher for the rest of my life, I'm perfectly fine. I can die. It's fine. It's okay. That's where I am.
Then how is the response from those people that you are talking to? Business people. Is there anybody who came to you and said, you know what? you made a change in my life when you are talking about this and that. How is the response?
It's been so incredible.
Yeah.
It's been so incredible because what I thought was exactly what it is.
Okay.
Ne? And when I talk to people and I find out how it is that they think versus how it is that they should be thinking, you find that the little knowledge that I impart, it lights up a bulb in their head that they come to me and they're like, oh my word, I didn't think about it like that. I actually have a lady that I'm mentoring right now. Her name is Ngebagazi Sopai. She's absolutely amazing, and she had started her cleaning business and she fell ill. Because of her illness, her business tanked, right? Sales, obviously, everything tanked, and she had given up completely. She's like, I'm on my way to deregistering the business, but I saw your posts, and I would love for you to mentor me because I don't know what I'm doing, right? And I was like, let's do it. Let's do it. Ngabagazi, today, you should see her posts. You should see her products. You know, her products are in, you know, your spa, in you know, Umtata, I think, in Mount Frey, and she's just doing it because she's like, I can't believe this is how I thought, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into when I was saying mentor me. I didn't know it would be this. It was like a light bulb went out in her mind, right? Because business is tricky, but it doesn't mean that we can't do it. And if the stats for these jobs keep dropping, people need to really start to consider how it is that they are going to sustain themselves. And e-business comes out on top. And the government is supporting that. The government is saying, guys, we need to consider starting businesses, right? And I understand that not everyone is going to be a business person. Some people know themselves to be great employees, which is fine. Find a small business that you can help to grow.
Wow. But I just want to ask you this question. We are doing business. The struggle that we find ourselves in, you tend not to believe that one day you'll be successful, especially when you look at other people, seeing them that they are running with this thing. They are buying cars, they are building homes, they are doing this and that, whereas you are all in business. Is it supposed to be like that?
Do you know what?
Yeah.
Excuse me. In business, you have to decide if you want to do what you want to do, or you want to sell a product or solve a problem that needs solving. Now, what I learned is that some problems are everyday problems. Ne? I need to eat every day. That's a problem. I'm hungry every 3 hours. That's a problem. If you are to open a catering business, if you are to open anything to do with food, there's no way you're not going to be successful. Because you are solving a problem. You have to understand what problem you are solving. Right? And who is the one who is having that problem. Right? The biggest misowners make is that you start a business, right? And you start a business and you want to sell to the upper middle class. We all want our businesses to be beautiful. They must look great, we must drive great cars, you know, all of that. That's only 2% of South Africa. That's literally only 2 million people. But South Africa has about 60 million people, probably 40 million of those are in the lower LSM. And right now, government is saying, listen, we've got money for spazas. You might want to open up a spaza and you don't need to leave your kasi, just build one for your people, right? The township economy is big, but it's only the people who understand the numbers that go there and build the malls there because they know there's money there, right? We are still fixated on getting the job, and when you start the business, you want to start the fancy business. You don't want to start the boring business.
I cannot sell a magwinya, man.
You don't. Do you know? My goodness. Because amagwinya can turn into amagwinya nemins,
Yes.
can turn into sandwiches,
Yes.
can turn into lunch packs for people in their offices,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Now you are looking now at revenue streams
Okay.
within your business, and every business has one. You might think that you are only selling information, right? But what else within here can you sell?
Okay.
You know, what other services within your businesses can you sell?
Wow.
I know people right now who I have said, start a baking business. You're good at this. Start a baking business. But you want a job that is going to pay you only a week's worth. And I'm sure of what I'm saying because I know the numbers.
Yes.
If you're going to bake, you're baking scones. People need scones for a funeral.
Yes.
And who is our customer? It's your people.
Yes.
Because you know your people. It's either they're having a mcimbi, it's either they are, what's it called? It's a lobola, it's, you know,
There's a lot.
It's a funeral, it's everything. They need scones. They need all the baked goods.
Yes.
It's someone's birthday. It's someone's wedding. It's someone's, you know, it's a bake sale. It's everything. When you start to understand that even the boring businesses, they will make you 4 times or 5 times the money that that beautiful company you want to work for will give you. That company you want to work for and you want to sit in that office, my goodness, because a wedding cake right now will cost you anything from 3,000 Rand to 7,000 Rand, depending on where you are.
Yes.
Let's say here in Matad, you're looking at, I was selling mine for around 5,000 Rand, right? And I had a wedding cake probably every weekend when I was baking.
Okay.
That was what, 20,000 Rand
20,000 Rand a month.
in a
yes.
month.
Wow. All right, mbukeli nguye lo uQaqamba Nodada. Now, let me give a chance to the audience yam apha and see if mhlawumbe bane questions abafuna ukuzibuza nabo akabaphendule nje uQaqamba. Guys, ukhona umuntu ohalela ukubuza, nansi guest yethu esinayo apha. Khawubuze mhlekazi. I know you are running a business. You are a young person. You are running a business. Is there a question mhlawumbe ohalela ukuyibuza? Okay, akekho ufuna ukubuza umbuzo.
But yeah, since you taught us we can since you say that fanele uqale somewhere, I just want to ask on behalf of young people actually that want to go into business. Abazi where to start. They don't know what they need to do. They don't know which problems they need to solve in their communities. They don't know themselves enough to know which streamline to fall into. So I think into Balegile right now as a youth, where do you start? And how do you get to find yourself that is going to solve the problem on an everyday, not just your problem, but a problem within the community, because you had stipulated about if you want to do a business, at least find a problem and at least solve a problem within the community. So I think that is very important for youth. How do you start? Where do you start? And how do you find yourself and where to go? We places where to get help, like Uchilwa, you also mentor a few individuals, and I think mentoring is very important. So I think Nalondo help will actually help. So how do you go from 0 to hero?
Okay, that's a great question. That is a great question. I think first you need to identify what your problem is and why you want to start the business, right? That is such a pivotal thing that you can address. Okay, the first problem of a black child, or anyone for that matter, is that I don't have money.
Yes.
You start a business because you don't have money. right? Then you have to ask yourself, with this money, what exactly do I want to do with it? Ne? What exactly do I want to do? Should I have the money? You start to dream, right? And when you do that, you're writing down all these things. My problem is that I do not have money and I want what? Money. Money is the tool that will get me to a place of what? Happiness. What is going to make me happy? Buying my mother a house or living in a nice suburb, right? People say money won't buy you happiness. Money will buy you happiness, right? That's the first thing you need to understand, right? Is that money is a tool. It's got nothing to do with your morality. Your morality will be shown once you get the money, or what type of person you are. Now we'll start to understand if you need Jesus or not, or which level of Jesus you need, right? So once you understand that I need money, right? And I'm going to make that money lawfully. As a young person, you are living in the time of technology. You are always on your phone. If it's not Instagram, it's Facebook. If it's not Facebook, it's YouTube. But you always have data. And there's something called ChatGPT, AI, artificial intelligence. You don't need to, that thing thinks for you. You don't need to do absolute research. You don't need to go to the
Just
library.
instruct that thing to
You
do
tell
this.
that thing, I want to open a business. I live in a township called Matatie, and it has a population of 200,000 people, right? I am a young person. I don't have money. What are the possible businesses that I could start that would give me X amount of money? AI will tell you all the answers. Very easy. That part is very easy, and that is not only for young people. That is for old people, middle-aged people, anyone. You have to start to get on the bandwagon of technology that is evolving, because the future is here. When I was in Stellenbosch doing a business degree, there is a course called Future Studies. Ne? In Future Studies, they teach you about the future, and they had us do an assignment where they're like, we need you to design something, a service or a business or whatever, that hasn't been designed before, right? And all of us started speaking about, hey, what if there was a flying this, and what if there was there's things that you really think, okay, I'm thinking out of my mind. Only to find that everything that we said we wanted to create has already been created. It's already here. The future is already here. There's nothing you can do about technology. You have to embrace it and use it and leverage it for your own success. So that's why I'm saying, Wuti, make sure that you have a ChatGPT app on your phone. You can ask it anything.
And you don't have to start big. You have to start small when you are doing this.
Precisely. So once you have an idea of, okay, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Another thing you are going to have to understand, especially as a black child, is that you are going to have to understand that the first resource, because everyone is like, oh, I want funding, we don't have funding. So you go like this and you're like, okay, I don't have money, I don't have funding, so I can't start a business. And I am the government's responsibility, and it's the government's fault that I don't have a business and I don't have a job. Ne? Your first resource is your body. If you can go into someone's house and say, I would love to tend your garden, and I'll charge you X amount. I will come in every week on Monday to tend your garden, and you go to all these houses. That's fair. People will give you a chance. Remember I said, when people can see, Uguti, hey, this guy, he's dedicated and he works, even if they don't necessarily need the service, they will latch on to your own motivation, right? And once you begin to understand your body as your first resource, you understand that you can wash people's clothes, you can clean people's houses, you can run people's errands. Ask ChatGPT, what lawful job can I do that will give me money X, Y, and Z. ChatGPT will give you all the jobs, and you just start executing.
Wow.
And you gain that money, right? Once you start gaining the capital, your brain will light up into other possibilities, right? You'll start to think, okay, now I can actually afford a car. That I've saved up with this money, right? Maybe I can start transporting kids. And you start to do that. And you level up again. I have now stand some Ramhlagwan. What if I build flats with my money, Abandwan, and start a rental, or start an Airbnb in the Lalis, right? For international, clients. International clients come through here all the time. Airbnb, that thing. Put it on Airbnb, put it on your Facebook, on your your Facebook or your Instagrams are not for your personal life. They are for you to use so you can get money.
Siye ukuthukana ku Facebook bethuna.
It's not for that.
It's not for ukuthukana le.
It's not for that. It's either you are a consumer or you are a creator. When you start to be a creator, you use the platform to give you money instead of you giving the platform money.
Wow. Well, guys, ukhona omnye umuntu ke sinika umuntu ogqibela ke ngoku sizokwazi uvala. Ukhona omnye umuntu okhali ukuba abe ne question. Izaputi.
Mine it's not a question as such, but it's just to say, I think I was supposed to be here. I must say that I'm so inspired, to be quite honestly. And you actually ignited something. Yeah, there was something, but for instance, I started a year ago. I'm so tuned into cropping. So I started with a few hectareages, like going on beans and potatoes, and they've done so well. But last year, I don't know what happened, I didn't go. But I wanted, but as I'm saying, I think I had to be here. Maybe I also need to get your business card, because this year I've been like, yeah, I have to go. But even though I'm so sweet, but I'm just telling myself that I need to go back, man. But that's a fact that, especially the point that you made when you're looking into our economic situation, that it keeps on going down every day.
Yes.
One has to ask him or herself some questions that, I can't honestly be relying on a daily job. I need to do something and create opportunities myself. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Definitely. And I love that you say you're into farming and crops and all of that, I think what farmers or small-scale farmers don't think about, you only think about the product. You don't think of diversifying the product. When we talk about potatoes, if you have a potato, it can't only be that I'm going to sell a sack of potatoes. I have to sell fried potatoes. I need to find a way to process the potatoes as well, so it can be an extra thing that I'm offering in the market, right? So when people know that I don't only offer potatoes, but I also offer frozen for potatoes, as a slice. I go to my catering ladies. You have Mavebi, you have everyone. I go to Jean, he has the Wimpy and everything. We network, we build relationships, and he knows I've got a guy. For my spinach, I've got a guy. For my potato chips, I've got a guy. Tati, I think Tati is her name, with a little food truck. She sells potato chips. Right? If I'm going to choose whether I'm going to buy in the shop or from someone that I know and have networked with, I'm definitely buying from someone that I know.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's why I want to encourage everyone who's here and everyone who's at home and everyone who's watching to go to networking events. There need to be more of these, because that is where relationships are formed. Networking events are not, we're not there to drink tea and talk about business, right? Networking events are about, I've got a service that you can use?
Yes.
How can you use my service? How can I use your service?
Yes.
And how can we build a strong foundation of business within Madatiel?
Yes.
How do we keep it within ourselves so that we build each other up? And that's when you start to see chains of commercialization of businesses. You see a whole chain. I know exactly where I'm going to get what from, right? And I'm supporting him because he looks like me. And I'm going to have I'm going to give him grace.
Yes.
That's another thing we don't do as businesses, more especially Tina. We don't give each other grace because we use a very Western benchmark of excellence for each other, right, in business. And sure enough, yes, we want to be excellent, but knowing that you come from a very disadvantaged background, you have not been to business school, if you are teachable as a business owner and you can take negative feedback and you are willing to grow, then it means that you can make the mistake. I will still work with you because I understand that you are willing to grow. If I tell you, listen, you need to be on time, and you're like, I didn't think that was an issue, but now that you raise it, actually it speaks more to my brand and my reputation if I am on time. And when you start implementing the principles of excellence into the network and into the foundation and how we do things as business owners, that is how we grow.
Wow. Okugqibela sizovala. I want to know about the future in terms of a business. Nodada, NB, Bells, ithini future yabo ngoku.
Wow, it's bright. I can tell you that.
Yes.
It's really bright because, me and my husband absolutely love community.
Yes.
And my husband is very big on the community that he has. I am more of a global citizen.
Yeah.
I love the whole world.
Yes,
He loves Matatia.
Local, yes.
He's a local guy. I'm a global. You tell me
Always
America,
on
I'm
the
there.
plane.
Johannesburg, I'm there.
There.
So I love globally.
Yeah.
He loves locally.
Yes.
And when we talk about it, we talk about growth outside of Matatia.
Okay.
How do we give the service of Nodada? How are we there for our people beyond the borders of Matatia? What technologies are we implementing into our businesses to make them more accessible, to make them more relevant to even young people? How are we positioning our brand to speak to even the young people who don't think about that, who don't think about the necessary things like life insurance and death insurance and all of those things, right? And memorials, that's very important. How do we remember those who have passed? And how do we integrate the technology that is now here to make sure that it's not only just the tombstone, but there can be an online interaction of the tombstone and online what we are doing, And Bells is definitely going to keep supporting that. That is our focus now, not so much on the weddings, but more on the funerals and making sure that clients are getting all the services that they need. And that gives me sort of a leeway then to also focus on growing better in business, growing my reach with people, with corporates, and teaching people how to do business better, because that's definitely where we are going. We are going to be seeing a lot. In fact, there are a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of young people who are doing amazing things, right? But it's about working with the mindset. It's about working with them, practically and technically. How are they doing their business and all of that?
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, can you put your hands together for Umama Nodada? I am sure mbukeli apha ekhaya uhleli ubukele ininto oyifundileyo kulento besiyincokola apha naye uMrs Nodada. Ndiza kumema ke into kokubana usoloko ujongile ayipheli i-conversation. Uyabuza apho, uyabhala, uyabuza imibuzo, siyaphendula naye umama Nodada uyayilandela informa, uzosoloko ephendula xa kukhona into oyifunayo. Into endiyilibele into ubani bakufumana phi abantu xa bekufuna kwi-social media khawusichazele.
Okay, social media, you can find me on Facebook, you can
Yes.
find me on TikTok,
Yes.
you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on LinkedIn, all under Qaqamba_Nodada.
Okay.
Yeah.
All under Qaqamba_Nodada. Niyamazi underscore hasas, niyamazi underscore. Alright manibulele bethunana, nibulele kwi-audience yami elapha ebesiyimemile into yoba mayibe khona. Guys, ndiyabulela kakhulu endikucelayo kuni into yokubana nishare le conversation esiyithetha, ikhona ku-Facebook, ikhona ku-YouTube, kwezo ndawo zombini nishare, nisoloko nithetha ngobona fela podcast. Mbukeli apha ekhaya sawusoloko ke sizirekhoda qho ngolezine izawudlala ilantuka ka podcast. Okay, kuthiwa nansi yami camera izawudlala i-podcast yethu qho ngolezine ngentsimbi yesithandathu ku-YouTube. Awuzoyifumana ku-Facebook. You are not going to get it on Facebook, you will get it on YouTube. The Informer newspaper is going to be there. Please ke hlala